JJ, did you know yesterday was National Hair Day?
I hate you, Doug.
Well, how did you celebrate?
You think that's funny, don't you? You're really, really laughing at yourself. Some people will tell you to play it safe. We're here to tell you to go all out. Welcome to the All Out Blitz. I am your host, JJ Wenner, and I am joined by my nefarious, I don't even know what to call you anymore, Doug.
Yeah, we've been working together too long. Nefarious. Yeah, you can just say it how it is.
All right, I will. Well, Doug, I finally had a good week of fantasy in week 4. I actually won 75% of my matchups. I'm feeling good. I'm in a good mood. How was your week 4?
I did not win 75% of my matchups, but I am 4 for 4 in terms of batting over 500 in terms of my winning percentage. So, this was I for the first time ever. I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and I'm going to keep track of my weekly wins and losses. Partially because we're doing a pod, but partially just because I'd be interested. So I think for my season total is something like 90 and 56, and of course that's the victory points. So 90 and 56, I think that's like a 62.5% winning percentage. So, and I had a good week this past week. Monday night I turned a few potential losses into wins, or I was fortunate enough. So doing well. Thank you.
Good. I am glad. Although you don't cheer for my joy, I want you to be happy, Doug. I'm more of a giver, obviously, in this relationship. But tonight on the show, Doug is going to share the insight he has gained from watching the film and diving into the analytics from week 4. But before we do that, what the hell are you drinking? Is that antifreeze?
That's antifreeze. Yeah.
You are an alien. You're not even human. I don't even know what to say to you. But before we get into this, let's get a word from our sponsors and maybe a health and wellness check on Doug Orth. Start your season off right with IDP Plus. Visit idpplus.com for a limited time. Get 20% off any subscription with the promo code PROPS. Get access to our tools, data, and IDP articles. And don't miss out on our subscriber Discord, where your subscription gets you access to our entire suite of tools. Go to IDP Plus and start your march towards fantasy football glory today. Doug, I'm not sure why you do this to me, but let's kick off the week with Garrett Wilson. Really? You know this is a Jets podcast.
I do it out of love, JJ.
You do nothing out of love. You do nothing.
I drink antifreeze. I play fantasy football 24/7. That
is true. That is.
I'm a selfish bastard. What can I say?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about Garrett Wilson, but
yes,
I'll let you go first.
Thank you, JJ. All right. Charvarius Ward, L'Jarius Sneed, Christian Gonzalez, Patrick Surtain II. What do these guys have in common?
They are very good corners and terrible in IDP.
I like it. As you nailed it, JJ. I'll just go ahead and say what I was going to say, but you pretty much already nailed it. So this is not some random list of recent Pro Bowl or All-Pro cornerbacks. They are the cornerbacks who have frequently lined up against or across from Wilson over the first 4 weeks of the season. Fantasy managers have no one to blame but themselves if they didn't anticipate a slow start from Wilson if they had bothered to look at his potential individual matchups. Bear with me here. Let us review what the aforementioned foursome gave up on average last season. So what I did here is I took some like the PFF, and again, say what you will about PFF, but at least they have something in this regard. So I took what each cornerback allowed in their coverage, right? And I added all those together, and then I did averages and so on and so forth. So This is what they gave up on average per game last year. 3.3 receptions on 5.8 targets for 38.1 yards and a touchdown roughly once every 7 games. You heard that right, once every 7 games. So that means the average receiver facing them through 4 weeks would have been somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 catches on 23 targets, which is good for a catch rate of about 56.5%. For 152 yards and 1 touchdown, and that's assuming we round up from 0.6. So that's, basically a half a touchdown, if you want to call it that, right? Okay. So remember that. 13, 23, 152, and 0.5. Through 4 games, Wilson has 20 catches on 34 targets for 191 yards and a touchdown. Okay, remember that list of guys I just told you about. His 20 catches are tied for 14th in the league, and his 34 targets are tied for 9th. I would tell you that's not too bad considering the guys just the quality of the guys that he's faced.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I actually like that perspective.
Opportunity has not been the issue for him. The problem is that top flight corners tend to depress yardage and touchdown numbers for all receivers, even elite ones. Great play callers can minimize this effect somewhat. Dun, dun, dun. But Wilson does not have that luxury with our boy, offense coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. Now, Wilson is not without blame, however. Now, there was a missed opportunity for anybody that was watching the Jets Broncos this past weekend. Right out of the 2-minute warning, obviously in the 4th quarter, Wilson is running what should have been like a deep post. So he needed to get behind the linebacker in front of the safety. He had short motion to get behind Alan Lazard and just needed to, again, get behind Jonathan Cooper, and in front of the safety. Anyway, everything about that route, including the short motion I just mentioned, suggests that he was the primary read. The placement of Aaron Rodgers' throw suggests Wilson was supposed to clear the linebacker and go low to catch the ball to avoid getting hit. And if anyone who saw that remembers, Wilson just kind of la-di-da between the 2 safeties and didn't look back for the ball until he cleared the safeties. So basically, he appeared unaware that he was the primary target. That cannot happen. I can't remember ever playing a football game in which I wasn't looking back for the ball at some point. Even it didn't matter if I thought I was the 3rd or 4th read. I expected the ball whether or not I got it thrown to me. And I would think that Wilson, especially with like a 30% target share, I would expect him to be looking for the ball on a fairly regular basis. Anyway, now the Jets are actually doing a good job of trying to get Wilson away from the other team's top corner. And I say that partially because he's been in the slot 42.9% of the time. But the difference between this year and his first 2 seasons is that Aaron Rodgers can make it to a 2nd or 3rd read in his progression, unlike many recent Jets quarterbacks. Former starters such as Zach Wilson did not have that ability, nor did the Jets have the talent on the offensive line to give him time to do it. Wilson did not just suddenly forget how to get open. His time will come soon. So anybody that's panicking, I'm going to be – I don't care if we're here in another 3 weeks, JJ. I'm going to keep telling you it's Garrett Wilson is still hashtag good at football, okay? That's not changing. The dam could break open as soon as this coming week 5, against the Vikings defense that has been stellar, but given up a ton of garbage time numbers in recent weeks to Stephon Diggs. Diggs had 10 catches for 94 yards, no touchdowns, and Jaden Reed, 7, 139, and 1. What are your thoughts on Mr. Wilson?
I have quite a few. I think first, he was interviewed after this week's game.
Yeah.
He said, I don't think we do a lot of different stuff, to be honest. I watch football on Sundays, and I see a lot of teams mix it up and stuff like that. I don't think we do that. Now, he wasn't complaining. They were asking him a question specific, and he was answering the question that was asked.
Yeah.
That being said, I watched the game on Thursday night, and I saw what the Cowboys and the Giants did to get their star receivers open.
Yeah.
And the Jets.
Jets podcast. This is the Jets podcast. This is safe.
The Jets don't do that, though.
No, they don't.
Yes, they run him in motion a little bit, but he always stops. He never has the motion like the Dolphins where he's still moving when the ball is snapped. It is such a disjointed offense. And I have to say, the offensive line, Olu Fashanu, is not playing well on the right side. There is a ton of fast pressure on him. And I know it was weak. It was terrible weather. It was rainy. Yeah. They couldn't grip the ball. There was a lot of stuff going on. So I don't want to over exaggerate, be hyperbolic about what I just saw. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers is without blame, even on the play you are talking about. You're right. He does run the skinny post. Rodgers throws it down and away. But Garrett Wilson was running straight into two safeties.
Yeah.
There were two safeties standing right where Aaron Rodgers threw the ball. Maybe don't throw it where the two safeties are covering your... Like, I don't quite understand that. Like, he was going to get murdered if he caught that ball. And I'm not saying he made a decision not to get hurt.
Right.
Business decisions like Antonio Pierce doesn't like. But I think there's a lot of things wrong with the team. I don't understand everybody saying that Garrett Wilson is trash. I mean, he clearly is a good wide receiver. I don't know why people are giving up on him. But I'm still, Doug, a little bit optimistic.
A little bit. Oh.
A little bit. But speaking of optimism, between Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts, tight ends have disappointed us a lot. Now, as I said with Wilson, Doug, I am an eternal optimist when it comes to player talent. Oh, but that pessimism is like seeping into my veins, Doug, when it comes to Pitts. Please tell me you saw some good news this week. Please.
No. Yeah, I saw good news. Unless we like bagels. Do we like bagels?
Bagels or the Bengals?
Bagels.
Oh, I got you. I do like bagels. Everything bagel, cream cheese, toasted. Go ahead.
All right. I'm going to talk about Kyle Pitts. And I'm going to talk about him because people are jumping off the bandwagon and to a degree, rightfully so. Anyway, Pitts is one of the greatest athletes to play the tight end position in the NFL. That much cannot be debated. As a 21-year-old, and we talked about this before, we probably talked about this in June. As a 21-year-old, he became only the second tight end in league history to top 1,000 yards receiving as a rookie, joining Hall of Famer Mike Ditka. In that amazing 2021 season, Pitts became the only rookie tight end in league history to average more than 15 yards per catch while also fishing with at least 60 receptions. That's something that Ditka didn't do. During that same season, Pitts thrived on deep, which is 20 targets of over 20 yards. He thrived on deep targets, catching 7 of 12 such throws in his direction for 239 yards. Over the next 2 years, he was a combined 5 for 25 for 142 yards. Okay, the main reason usually cited, and it's a good one, main reason usually cited for his statistical decline in 22 and 23 usually revolved around poor quarterback play. Again, that holy trinity of Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, and Taylor Heineke. There's also no question that the knee injury he suffered in Week 11 of 2022 affected him last season as well. So to a degree, he gets a pass for that, or at least we should give him a pass for that. 4 games into what was supposed to be his bounce-back season, little has seemingly changed, despite the arrival of a quarterback known for relying on his tight ends in Kirk Cousins and one of the league's many Sean McVay disciples and offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson. The metrics support what the box scores have been telling us for a few years. One of 3 things. Pitts is a one-hit wonder, has lost some of his athleticism, or is a victim of multiple coaching staffs trying to turn him into something he's not, a wide receiver. And I think that's, if I'm going to pick one of the 3, I'm going to pick the last one there. JJ, if you would like to queue up some of the visual evidence. Now we're going to run this through a few times for you folks here. Before you hit start. Sorry. I'm gonna, like I said, we're gonna do this 3-play sequence here for you. Although we know that no 3-play sequence is necessarily indicative of a full season of film, and anybody who remembers last week remembers that 50-yard catch against the Chiefs, that tells me he's still got some explosion inside of him. Let's pretend like this three-play clip is indicative of his full season. So again, before we start, each of the 3 targets you're about to see were similar in that he lined up wide each time. He technically motioned over to the slot over on the last one and ran short routes. Another observation is he's not running good routes. Allow me to explain. The first route you see here was doomed from the start because Cousins took a short set on his drop and stared Pitts down, which tells the defense where and when the throw is going to go. Pitts made it worse by doing a poor job of setting up his route. What do I mean by that? Sometimes you get that arm, the head and body fake. Sometimes you can fake, you can shimmy to the left, that type of thing. None of that. It was just like he was drawing up just exactly like it was appeared on the whiteboard or whatever. Then again, Cousins could have waited for Pitts to move into that second window of the zone. And let's see, we'll go back to here again, and I'll wait for that to come up because I want everybody to see the next one here. As we go back to the first clip here, Cousins could have waited for Pitts to get into that second zone, basically to clear the safety in the middle of the field. Cousins was not under pressure, and it would have allowed Pitts to move past the safety. The second route you're going to see here is a lazy route at best. Pitts takes about too many 2-steps here before his break and does nothing to threaten Saints cornerback Marshawn Lattimore. How do I know that? Because Lattimore doesn't move off his spot. It's as if he knows that the route's coming. Anyway, Lattimore easily jumps the route and breaks up the play. Pitts made it worse by not doing more to use his body to keep Lattimore from making the play. You'll see that that's one of the big advantages tight ends have, is using their big body to block out the sun, so to speak. The third route is more unfortunate than anything. It's hard to tell if defensive back Will Harris held Pitts on some point during the route or if Pitts tripped. That's just the 3-play sequence from this past week. JJ, do you have any thoughts about what you just saw?
I mean, watching these plays, the first thing that struck me is that he's rounding off his cuts. On the first play that you were talking about, he just didn't seem to have explosion off the line. And when you said that Lattimore was sort of just waiting for him to do his in cut, it didn't seem like he was going to do anything downfield because he wasn't explosive off the line.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know if that is a technique. Like, I don't coach wide receivers like to kind of like slow foot it off the line to then accelerate. But by reading the guy covering you, obviously he didn't buy it. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what Kyle Pitts is. And I don't know if anybody knows.
There are a handful of routes that you don't mind slow playing, but the slants are usually called quick slants for a reason. In breaking routes, unless you're trying to, there's what's called a dagger concept. Basically, dagger concept usually is the slot runs a vertical route and the outside receiver runs an in cut behind him. Is what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to clear out the safety a little bit, and it allows the in breaking route to get basically behind the linebacker and again in front of the safety. You don't mind occasionally slow playing that route. You don't occasionally mind slow playing a few other routes. I can't tell. And just like you said, I don't know if anybody can tell. I don't know if it's a lack of urgency, if he is, if he feels it inside of himself that he's the third or fourth option in the offense. He just basically based on things that he's being told by his offense coordinator that, hey, you'll see plenty of receivers across the league in college football. If they know they're not getting the ball, they're not They're not making every route look the same. I can tell you on the short break, on the slant and the in cut there, though, I don't care what size you are. You want to break down a little bit more than that. You don't want to stand up. If you're 6'5" and 250, it doesn't give you the permission to run straight up. You've still got to bend your knees. You still got to have some bend to your hips, that type of thing. So don't know if it's a lack of urgency. Don't know if it's that's something I think I'm afraid we'll find out in the off season because I don't think we're going to.
And what you said even about that first route that we're talking about,
yes,
like, was he running with urgency? If your quarterback is taking a short drop, like, that's all. That's the play.
That's the play.
You can't slow play an in.
Yes,
if it's a 3-step drop, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because it has to match up.
Routes are run and drawn up based on the depth of the quarterback drop back. So again, if you're taking a 3-step drop even back from shotgun, well, especially if it's just shotgun and he doesn't take any steps back. But
right.
Let's say he takes 3 steps back from shotgun, it still needs to come out. That first read is probably a 5-yard route, somewhere around 5 to 8 yard route, probably something in that neighborhood. Okay, having said that, here is part of the problem as I see it. Pitt's average depth of target was 10.8 yards as a rookie. That mark right now is at 8.5 through 4 games after being at 13.8 in 2022 and 11.4 in 2023. Nothing about Pitt's 4.4 speed at 250 pounds or his 83 3/8 inch wingspan screams short area receiver. Do I need to say that again, JJ?
No, he's definitely a big specimen.
Similarly, there is a reason players his size do not typically play receiver in the league. They present a bigger target for cornerbacks to slow down the line of scrimmage, basically giving them a larger surface area for cornerbacks to get them on the jam. And they typically lack the quickness to avoid the jam. So then they get stuck at the line of scrimmage. As we didn't have that problem here, but his problem is just not getting off the line of scrimmage fast regardless. So anyway, Zach Robinson is thankfully using Pitts more in line than former head coach Arthur Smith did, but it's still not enough. Why should he line up in line on passing plays more often? Well, as we kind of hit on already, someone with his size and skill set offers an advantage against linebackers and safeties, not cornerbacks. Furthermore, Pitts needs to be able to use his straight line speed in those linebacker and safety matchups downfield, not trying to make quick moves on in-breaking routes against cornerbacks. As a first-time play caller, Zach Robinson deserves the benefit of time to figure out how to best weaponize Pitts, but there's no guarantee that will happen anytime soon, if ever. What does that mean for fantasy owners? He's almost unplayable in most leagues until we see proof of it happening. At this point, I would rather start Bengals rookie Eric All Jr.
Yeah, picked him up in a few leagues, buddy. I just, until he knows what he is and the offense identifies it, I think he continuously gets used incorrectly. I mean, I know he had troubles with Arthur Smith, and we sort of just said Arthur Smith is kooky, doesn't care, right? He has daddy's money. He's fine. It doesn't matter if he's good or not. But now it's another offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
It's somebody from the McVay tree, and we're seeing the same type of underperformance. And just because you are uber athletic doesn't mean you're going to make it as a tight end. Unfortunately, you just can't out athletic people. You have to be able to do your job and do it right. And I think part of that is what's missing with Kyle.
One of the things, and this is not something I don't think I anticipated, but the first part I'll try to make my point here eventually. So one of the things I try to do when I'm doing projections in the summer is figure out who's fighting who for the short and intermediate and deep targets, right? Well, Pitt, again, as I'm alluding to here, Pitts is not a short and maybe he's a deep intermediate, but he's certainly a deep target. I would say even like 15 to 20 yards as opposed to 10 to 15 yards, but let's call him an intermediate to deep target guy, okay? he was never. I don't think he was ever going to be that, 80 catch, 1,200 yard, 8 touchdown guy, because I don't think he was ever going to get that kind of volume. Because your deep targets usually don't get that kind of volume. They're lower percentage throws and whatnot. The problem is, okay, so they have 2 deep targets on that team, right? They have Darnell Mooney and Pitts. But Mooney, I don't think is running a lot of deep routes either. So now you got basically 4 to 5 guys running this in the same area, right? So you're going to target London 8 to 10 times. You're going to get Bijan at least his 4 to 5 targets. Mooney's getting some quick screen work, and he's seen 6-7 targets right now. And of course, they're trying to feed Bijan the ball in the running game like crazy.
Don't forget Ray.
But yeah, exactly, and that's I think that might be this biggest impediment. Even though they don't run the same routes and they don't work in the same area, I think part of Pitt's arrow pointing down is the emergence of Ray McLeod.
Well, because Ray's good in short yardage situations,
and that's where Cousins
open quick,
and that's where Cousins is throwing right now. Whether or not he doesn't trust his Achilles enough to this point, I don't know. He's a good deep ball thrower, so just like with anything in football, there's not 100% blame that goes to one person, and I think some of this is on Cousins too. But as we saw from that 3-play clip, I think it's indicative of what is happening with Pitts right now. He's probably not running the greatest. He's not running the greatest routes,
right?
And he's not showing a lot of urgency.
It's a shame. It's a shame. All the tools.
Yep.
But maybe that is a type of player who needs to go to another team just to get that shot in the arm that they have to wake up. And either it's going to happen or it's not. But at this point in my fantasy life, I don't know, man. Like, I can't count on Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what I can count on, Doug. Expedia. It's football season, and that means a trip to see your favorite team on the road, right? Well, with Expedia, you get the best prices when traveling, and we are thrilled to have our partnership with them. So you need a flight to go to Denver? I don't, because the Broncos just beat the Jets, and I don't want to see Denver again. Do you want to rent a car in Miami? Probably not, because Tua's still on IR. Or do you want a hotel in San Francisco? Are any of the San Francisco players healthy? I'm not sure. But if you want to go to any of those towns, go to idpplus.com/Expedia and build the best package to travel to the big game. All right, now on to Sunshine and Unicorn Farts, Doug. A player who I thought was a one-trick pony has proven me quite wrong, and I love being wrong. So what have you found with Brian Thomas Jr.?
Well, let's begin with my pre-draft evaluation of Thomas. I gave him a high-end comp to a more athletic and dynamic T. Higgins and a low-end comp to Christian Watson. That should give you some idea of what we're dealing with here. The talent was obvious at LSU, and it did not take long for him to announce his presence at the NFL level. He currently sits at wide receiver 14 in total PPR points and wide receiver 20 in points per game through 4 weeks. Thomas is not picking on lowly competition for his fantasy success either. His worst game as a pro so far was 5 catches for 48 scoreless yards against the Bills, who have been the second stingiest defense against receivers through 4 weeks. He posted 94 receiving yards on only 2 catches and 4 targets, mind you, against the Cleveland defense that managed to keep the likes of CeeDee Lamb and Malik Neighbors under 80 yards. Fantasy managers likely witness a glimpse of what is about to come on a regular basis in week 4, although the Texans did their part in gifting him a touchdown, gifting him a touchdown by asking safety Eric Murray to check him on a drag route out of the slot at the 2-yard line. You don't want to put a backup safety against Brian Thomas anywhere, much less the 2-yard line. However, he made 2 other plays that should impress most football fans. If you want to go ahead and cue up our visual evidence here on this 32-yard grab here in the third quarter.
Take advantage. Lawrence to Thomas for the touchdown.
See Brian Thomas coming from.
Oh,
He's got it.
Let it go. You get one man look up.
Well, that was not where it was supposed to be. I got you.
All right. So on this
Today, as he looks for Thomas, he's got it.
Let it go. You get one man look outside, even though it's probably not man coverage. He drops the ball once he hits the ground.
Look at his hands
he
here.
has
Look at his
complete control in his hands.
So one of the things that you look for in a receiver, especially one that makes his living or tries to make his living as a vertical receiver, is what we call late hands. Basically not giving the cornerback a clue or any indication that the ball is coming until it's basically on top of him. So basically have the hands chug, 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 boom, and ball comes in about a second later. There's no time to react, essentially, right? So as I said, that's basically a must for any receiver attempting to be a consistent deep threat in the league, is to have late hands. And then a few minutes later in that game, I think that was a third quarter shot, then a few minutes later, he showed great patience. I mean, the kind of patience you wouldn't expect from more than 5 or 10 running backs on setting up his blocking on a 13-yard end around, which is, we always like to see that with our receivers too, because it's just more ways to get touch. Anytime the coaching staff is trying to get receivers involved in the running game, we like that, obviously. Even if we do nothing more than look at his targets over the first 4 weeks, which is in order 4, 4, 9, and 9, it is clear Thomas has already passed Gabe Davis as the top perimeter receiver in Jacksonville. The one hesitation I'll have is the eventual return of tight end Evan Ingram, who's been dealing with a hamstring injury since pregame of week 2. Will probably bring down that 21.3% target share a bit, but not to the point where he will not remain a quality wide receiver 3 option with wide receiver 2 upside. What thoughts do you have on the LSU product?
Well, I'm actually wondering if Evan Ingram will help him and if he's going to end up hurting more Gabe Davis and other players. You know, Evan Ingram can open up that middle. He's a first read, but I think he's going to attract a lot more attention, which can only help Brian Thomas on the outside. Any attention that he can draw away from safeties is going to help Brian Thomas. I've just been impressed with the overall game that he is showing. I really thought he was going to be a deep threat. He was going to run 9 routes, maybe posts. I don't know, something deep. Yeah. But he's doing everything. And he's doing it with a lot of efficiency, in my opinion, and effectiveness. And we've seen that, especially on a Jags team that is letting us down overall. I mean, he is one of the few, him and Bigsby, maybe the 2 bright spots on that team.
Yeah.
It was nice to see Bigsby come back this week.
And I can't believe I'm seeing this. And you don't want to take social media or anything that you see online as being too serious. But I'm already seeing the first rumors or murmurings. I don't know if that's a word. But about, oh yeah, Tank Bigsby is on his way to taking Etienne's job. Okay, I'm not quite there yet, but
no, Etienne clearly did something to make the coach mad.
Yeah,
in the first half, and he was being punished.
And they did talk about some kind of shoulder injury, I think, later in the telecast. But yeah, that screamed discipline to me. That did not scream like
as he was standing there without a helmet on the sideline.
Yeah.
Right. He looked like my son when he was little, and we sent him to his room, and he would just stand at his window watching us by the pool, with like loathing in his face. Love that kid. Always stubborn. But yeah, no, I mean, that's silly talk. Etienne is still the pass catching back. He's still the pass blocking back.
And look, we know what this stuff is. This nonsense stuff is most of the time. It's people looking at box scores and saying, "Oh, no one's explaining this to me why it's happening, so therefore it must be this losing his job." Or if you're watching this, okay, now if this happens over 4 straight weeks and Etienne is running in quicksand and Bigsby is breaking off explosive run after explosive run, maybe we're getting to a point of a split backfield. ETN's not losing his job.
No, but that's the problem with the red zone. Because I am anti-red zone. That's right, I said it. I hate the red zone. I think it's the worst product, and I think it's destroying people's love of football. I hope nobody hears this because that's going to be a hated take. But, yeah, too many highlights. People think all football is highlights then. All right. Well, speaking of highlights, there are certain things that will always get me going for a player. It's a good list. Dreads. Oh, there's nothing like a good set of dreads, right? Coming out the back of a helmet. A great name. I'm looking at you, Divine Diablo. I don't care how you play. Fantastic name. And any single player who is a third or more. You throw me David Sills the fifth.
Oh, man.
Fourth. I am all in.
Move him up around for every number, right?
Listen, if Henry the eighth I am declared for the draft, he'd go 1-1 in my league.
Oh, that's awesome.
But anyway, tell me why you are happy that Kenneth Walker the third came back this week.
JJ, I remember having a discussion about Kenneth Walker at some point during the summer. Did we not?
Oh, we did.
Okay, just checking. Hey, the fantasy community started to come around on Walker near the end of drafting season, but it was a bit too late for many. The Seattle coaching staff sang his praises throughout the summer, making quite clear its intentions of featuring him. In retrospect, I think he had 20 carries for 103 yards and a touchdown in that Week 1 win over the Broncos. That, in retrospect, that's looking pretty impressive now. And I know, say what you will about the Jets, but after Denver held Breece Hall and Braylon Allen to combine 38 scoreless yards and 14 carries, and then you see what else Denver has done. They played Pittsburgh. Not that Pittsburgh has been running the ball against anybody, but they did slow down that rushing attack. And I am coming up short on the they're doing pretty well. They're doing pretty well. I can't remember who they played in Week 3, but off the top of my head right now. But they've done a good job at stopping the run to this point. Anyway, at any rate, there are probably not enough superlatives to describe Walker's performance on Monday night. He earned them. There was a lot to love about his 3-touchdown effort, as he showed just about every skill. We're talking about speed, power, explosiveness, patience, tackle breaking, and receiving ability that coaches and general managers could want from a running back in today's NFL. Now, here are some of the metrics that reinforce that statement. And after I get through here, JJ, I'm going to have you queue up his third run. We're talking about 4.38 speed at the combine. We're talking about a career explosive run rate of 38.4. Do you understand how incredible that is? 4 out of every 10 runs, 2 out of every 5. Essentially, he's breaking off a big run.
Don't reduce fractions on me. This isn't a math podcast.
Yards after contact per attempt through his 2 games, because obviously he missed weeks 2 and 3. Yards after contact per attempt, 3.34. Missed tackles forced per attempt through 2 games, 0.34. These are all numbers. Yes. So one thing analytics struggles to quantify is vision. Go ahead, JJ. Walker's third score of the night probably illustrated his vision as much as any run in Week 4, and also incorporated the aforementioned metric.
Walker, nice cutback. One man to beat. Kenneth Walker to the end zone. Touchdown, Seattle. What a run that was.
Now, if you want to restart that one and stop it here, if you can, please. Okay. I'm going to stop it. Okay. There are any number of running backs who would have balanced the run outside of A.J. Barner's block. So as you can see the tight end coming through the hole here. And what I'm saying is that Walker could have easily opted to stay left and go outside of Barner, basically stay left. Okay. Any number of running backs would have done that because basically that's where the play was drawn up to go, right? And then if you want to let it go for about a second or 2 more.
Toss to Walker. Nice cut.
Okay. So there are any number of running backs who would bounce the run outside of the Barnes block, and other running backs who have tried to run outside or run through the Alex Anzalone because the play was drawn up to the left side. Walker saw this play unfold basically about the same time that he caught the pitch. It was about this. I feel like he saw this play unfolding as it ended up unfolding. What do you think about what you just saw, JJ?
Well, I saw exactly what you said. The play was going left. He saw a giant lane open to the right. He showed incredible patience because at this point he is running completely horizontal, right? He's not going upfield at all. He's just trying to outrun that last defender. And once he gets that step on him, he hits the gas and then outraces another guy to the end zone.
Now, and this is a great place to have it here to stop the video. So now there's probably, I don't know, I'm not going to try to count off the top of my head how many running backs could have attempted this move and scored on it. Okay, so one of it is having the confidence in your ability to pull this off. Another is not fearing for your job to the point where if you don't do what the coach says with a certain run, you're coming off the field, But yeah, just what you said. He knew. I think about this time he knew all he had to do was hit the gas, and he knows he's faster than pretty much everybody on the field. He knows if it comes down to he also knows he has the power advantage over basically anybody that's left that could tackle him. So, if you want to go ahead and play it out, I think we're done with the clip here.
Cut back. One man to beat. Kenneth Walker to the end zone. Touch.
Impressive.
Yes.
You know what he could use? Some dreads.
What could he use? What's that?
Some dreads.
Some dreads, yes. Well, he's shaved now. He's got the JJ dome.
Wow. Are we bookending the show with bald jokes?
That's not a bald joke. It's an observation, man. Some people like you can pull it off. People like me, I would just have a bumpy head, and I would look. I'd be like a Christmas tree without decorations. You would
look like Beaker. That's what you would look like.
That's right.
You would look like Beaker. Beaker is a reference for people who are a certain age who watch the Muppet Show.
I can't pull off red hair though. Right? I don't think I do want to try. Wrapping up here. Detroit is still. I want people to appreciate this that don't. Detroit is still the fifth stingiest defense against fantasy running backs after giving up 33.6 PPR points to Walker and another 10.4 to Zach Charbonnet in week 4. So you heard me right here. So we're talking about 44 fantasy points. They gave up 44 fantasy points in that game and are still the fifth stingiest run defense, or fifth stingiest defense against running backs, which tells you basically they were number 1 or number 2 going into the game, right?
Right.
And they were good last year. I'd venture to say they probably didn't go up more than 1 touchdown to any running back last year. I don't know. I don't remember that off the top of my head, but these guys are good. They probably won't give up another game even close to this the rest of the year. Something else to put in perspective. Walker rushed for 80 yards and scored 3 times on 12 carries, 6.6 yards per carry. Every other running back, including Charbonnet, the Lions have faced, have combined for 153 yards and 1 touchdown on 52 attempts. That's 2.9 yards per carry. 6.6 versus 2.9. Give you some more perspective. That other list, I told you about the other running back, every other running back. That other list includes Kyron Williams, Rashad White. If you want to throw Bucky Irving in there, that's fine too, and James Conner. We're not talking about slouches here.
Right.
Next up for Walker is the Giants defense that gave up huge rushing days to Aaron Jones, 14 carries at 94 yards and a touchdown, and Brian Robinson Jr., 17, 133, and no touchdowns, before facing the anemic rushing attacks of the Browns and Cowboys. Considering Walker is yet to play in a game with an extended positive game script and New York's lackluster offense, and it might be I know it's Wednesday here. We're talking, but Malik Neighbors isn't practicing, so that lackluster offense could become even more lackluster. We might be talking about an extended positive game script. Walker could be in for another huge day this coming week, and we should expect. I don't want to make proclamations for the rest of the year, but we're talking about it. He should be a top 5, top 10 running back at worst moving forward. Not that he wasn't. I think he was my 11th ranked running back coming into the season. I might have actually moved him up in the top 10 before the season started, but not many other guys I would want right now.
Yeah, you gotta love Kenneth Walker. Love him. I'm happy to have him on the rosters where I have him. I hated missing week 3 with him. That was like a swift kick in the nuts, especially considering that was the week that Deontay Johnson finally got a shot again. So
yes,
it was nice to have both of those players firing since they're on so many of my rosters. But it is time to say our goodbyes, Doug, and let people know where they can find us and anything that we're working on. You may go first, sir.
All right. Well, my article at Fantasy Points just dropped today. I will have my usual FF Today article hitting the site probably sometime Friday morning, Friday afternoon. I'm leaning toward doing something regarding target shares and carry shares in each team's backfield, and just because we're at the quarter pole, or at least kind of at the quarter pole of the season. So I think now's a good time to, since coaches tend to look at seasons, break down seasons in quarters, I think it's good as fantasy managers and analysts to do the same. And so I think over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to, one week I'll do carry shares, the other one, the following week, whichever one I don't do, it'll be target shares. So, but yeah, so like I said, Fantasy Points article is on the Fantasy Points site now. FF Today article should drop Friday morning, Friday afternoon. What you got, JJ?
Well, I'm at JJ Wenner on X. Thank you, of course, for taking the time to watch or listen to the podcast. Thank you to Doug for all of his work. Make sure you're checking out his content at Fantasy Points and FF Today. It's very, very good content, top notch. You can catch me tomorrow night on the Rider Dynasty podcast at 6 p.m., where we're discussing targets for all of your Dynasty leagues. And remember, when in doubt, go all out. Boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.